Jealousy can be a very powerful thing, and I'll be honest, I've been jealous before, and it has made me think the worst, act the worst, and turn into the worst version of myself. Luckily, despite all of the worst I was doing to myself and the way I was acting, I was never tempted to do the worst or make life-changing decisions fueled by jealousy. However, in some cases, jealousy does just that. It fuels a rage and hatred so deep inside that when it does bubble to the surface, nobody is safe, not even yourself. All you see is red. And that is exactly what happened in the case we're going to be discussing today. Hey guys, I'm Elise. This is 10 to Life. Go ahead and pause really quick to smash that like button, smash that subscribe button, and let's get into it.
10 to Life with Elise starts right now.
You know what time it is. It is time for another try-on haul with my good friends at Warby Parker. You guys all know I wear glasses. If you don't know I wear glasses, you've been living under a rock. Welcome to the chat. Hi, I wear glasses. But the new year is upon us. And so it has me thinking, new year, new me. Such a cliche motto, right? But in any event, I feel like I just need a new look. I need a new vibe. And Warby Parker, as always, has my back because that is my go-to for new frames. Warby Parker offers everything anybody needs for happier eyes, whether it is eyeglasses, sunglasses, contact lenses, and even eye exams. Glasses start at just $95, including prescription lenses. And here is where the game changer starts to enter the chat. You can shop them either online or in store, or at home, like I do. This is Warby Parker's free home try-on program, where you can order 5 pairs of glasses to try on at home at your leisure or on your channel with your viewers for free. There's no obligation to buy any of them, and it ships for free and includes a prepaid return shipping label. So that is what I like to do, and I like to get your guys' opinion because some of the times I think one looks good and then you guys in the comments are like, Annie, that's actually hideous. Definitely don't order those frames. So you gotta help me out here because I'm feeling like 2023 is going to be my year for my happy little trendy eyeballs. So first up, we have Faye in Layered Rose Quartz Crystal Riesling. That's a mouthful. Said it before, I'll say it again. I'm getting Jiminy Cricket vibes here. I don't think these are it for me. Let's try the Jayla in Russet Red. Now these, I definitely feel more librarian and like I look almost like a professor, but you know what? Something about it is just, it's not screaming that this is my 2023 look. These are the Hallie in Lapis Wide. Now, I love that the frames are blue, which it's really hard to see. You're probably like, Annie, no, those look black, but they're actually blue. But this feels very much like 2022 Annie. It doesn't scream 2023 Annie. Okay, now let's just have deja vu for a minute here because these are the Percy Tidal Blue. I tried these on last time and sent them back because I didn't love them. And then I started having like buyer's remorse, when you like buy something and regret it, but I had like returner's remorse. So I'm trying them on again. Okay, I think my inclination was right the first time. Definitely not. Last up on the docket are the Right in Medium Rosemary Crystal. I think these might be it. I like that they're green. I like that they're a little bit rounder than my bigger frames that I always wear. What do you guys think? So here's the deal, guys. You can do this too. You can try 5 pairs of glasses on at home for free by going to warbyparker.com/10tolife. Now, if you're like me, you like to shop with companies that give you the warm and fuzzies. And Warby Parker does just that for me because for every pair of glasses sold, Warby Parker distributes a pair of glasses to somebody in need through their Buy a Pair, Give a Pair program. Since day one, over 10 million pairs of glasses have been distributed worldwide. That is incredible. So guys, get your free at-home try-on like me. Tell me the glasses you tried, tell me the frames you tried so that I can keep trying new ones until I get the perfect Cinderella shoe for my eyes. Head to warbyparker.com/10tolife and get your free try-on kit with 5 glasses now. Mark Gerardo is a quiet and good-looking man in his mid-40s who has light brown hair and bright blue eyes. Genera and Mark met in 1986 in Indiana as teenagers, but at first, Mark was too afraid to make a move. So Genera pushed him to ask her out, and that's what Mark liked best about her. She was confident and direct, unlike Mark, who was really shy and reserved. Genera wasn't afraid to speak her mind, so that and her big blue eyes made Mark fall hard and fast. She was the love of his life. They were happy and couldn't imagine not being together for the rest of their lives. So in 1993, on October 23rd, the two of them were married. Although Mark felt like they had the perfect fairy tale marriage, his friends didn't quite agree. They warned him not to marry her, saying she would try to forbid him from seeing his friends, or how she would sit in their bedroom refusing to leave the room whenever they had company over. The friends didn't feel very good about this, and Mark's longtime friend Mike remembered her as controlling and manipulative in their relationship. They were also known to friends to have what was described as epic arguments. But Mark described their relationship to his friends as having the typical highs and lows that come along with any relationship or marriage. But in 2017, Mark and his wife of over 20 years entered one of those lows when Genera lost her job and with it, her confidence and her sense of self. The lack of a second income plunged the two of them into financial difficulty, and the couple began arguing regularly. They decided that they needed a fresh start. The two of them were living in South Carolina when Genera lost her marketing job, and the financial burden from this was causing very intense arguments between the two of them. Mark loved his wife dearly, so they decided that a new home and a new environment would be just what he and Genera needed to get their loving and happy relationship back on track and what it had been prior to the constant fighting and stress caused by Genera's unemployment. In the fall of 2017, he found the perfect solution. He discovered a position open at the University of Delaware in their marketing department, so he decided that he was going to interview for the job, and that interview would change his life forever. The woman conducting the interview was Meredith Chapman, born Meredith Sullivan, and she was born on January 31st, 1985. She was full of life and intelligence and was absolutely loved by everybody who met her. She was ambitious and beautiful with really long dark hair, green eyes, and just an infectious smile.
It was jaw-dropping to see her command a room.
She led a team overseeing the entire University of Delaware brand. She also taught classes.
So you fit right in well with the curriculum.
She had an impressive resume at the age of 32.
She ran for state senate in Delaware.
Today, I'm announcing my candidacy for the Delaware State Senate for District 8.
And had been named to Delaware's 40 Under 40 for Young Achievers.
At just 33 years old, she was already the senior director of the marketing department at the University of Delaware. Fresh out of college, in 2013, she had worked for Philadelphia's local news channel and became a coordinator of her local congressman, Mike Castle, in Washington, D.C. She even ran for her own Senate seat in 2016. Although she was unsuccessful in her Senate race, her star was still rising. She was unstoppable and extremely successful in the marketing field and became the youngest senior director in the history of the University of Delaware. This is when Mark met Meredith. When he initially interviewed for the position, he was a little worried that his new boss was 15 years his junior, but after their first meeting, his worries disappeared. Mark was enthralled by how energetic she was, how passionate she was, and how accomplished she was. He left this meeting thinking, I have to work for this person. And Meredith was equally impressed by Mark, and shortly after the interview, he was offered that position. When Mark moved to Delaware to start his new job, he thought this was exactly what he and his wife, Genera, needed. A new beginning in a new town, less financial difficulty, and no more constant arguments. When Mark moved to begin his new career, his wife Genera stayed behind to ready their home to lease out, and she planned to join Mark about a month later. Meanwhile, Mark was alone in Delaware and was beginning to get to know Meredith much better. At first, it was just drinks, having drinks as colleagues, then it was dinner at a nice restaurant, which felt very much more like a date. Now, Meredith was also married to her husband, Luke Chapman, a local councilman, and they had been married since 2003. Their marriage, however, was allegedly an unhappy one, so Mark and Meredith began to bond over their respective marriage difficulties. For Mark, it just felt amazing to be around Meredith, and Meredith would always tell him what a wonderful man he was, something his wife Genera apparently never told him, something he was itching for, urging for, and he was getting this from Meredith. So all of these intense feelings for his new boss seemed to bring his marital difficulties with Genera much more into focus. After 2 weeks of spending time together, Meredith and Mark shared their first kiss. Immediately, Mark felt guilty. He loved his wife and he did not want to hurt her, but he couldn't deny the feelings that he was having for Meredith also, and he felt compelled to see where those feelings would lead.
How many weeks into having met her did this happen?
4 weeks.
It was fast.
It was very fast.
Mark had applied for a job in Colorado before any of this had happened, and he gets an interview, so he decides he's going to go out and check it out anyway.
And I was in the middle of the interview. Something inside me clicked and said, I don't want this job. There was something about not seeing through what Meredith and I had started professionally that I couldn't give it up.
Professionally
Both.
and personally.
From the airport in Denver, I texted her that I was all in.
And how did you feel in that moment when you had made that decision?
It's hard to say how I felt. I felt enthralled. It was such a connection. To shut it down just didn't feel right. I had to at least find out what it was that drew us together so much.
Mark and Meredith find themselves embarking on a whirlwind romance. Meredith was also married.
What had Meredith told you about her marriage?
She certainly wasn't happy. What she said, they've been married for 9 years, and for the last 3, it was more of a show.
Did your relationship with Meredith reveal the problems in your marriage?
Here comes Meredith, and she's just telling me that I'm good at what I do. She said that I'm such a wonderful man. I had never heard this from Genera's lips, ever. Here's this woman who I think is amazing, saying that she thinks I'm a wonderful man.
She'd only known you for a few weeks, though.
Fair point. She'd only known me for a couple weeks.
By the time Genera finally had moved to Delaware from their old home in South Carolina, Mark and Meredith had already said I love you to each other, and the relationship was progressing quickly, very quickly, behind the spouses' backs.
Meredith and Mark are just falling hopelessly in love.
It's as if Mark is living in a parallel universe, unmarried, free to explore this new romance. It's like he doesn't even have a wife. Do you remember when you first told Meredith that you loved her?
When I first told Meredith, it was one of those things that it bottles up inside of you and you can't not say it. I couldn't not say it, and I told her, I love you. And she returned, and it was...
She said, I love you too.
She did. It was...
How do you explain that 1 month after meeting her?
I can't explain it. I can't explain it. I don't know. It's in the moment it felt right. Looking back at it, it seemed silly. When I say I love with her, I was in love with her, right? I couldn't love her in the way I loved my wife for 24 years.
It was a powerful feeling.
It was a very powerful feeling, and I was overwhelmed by it all. Did I still love my wife? Yes. I didn't know what to do with the feelings I was feeling. They were new, unexpected. At the same time, it was addictive as well.
When Genera finally got to Delaware in December of 2017, she was suspicious of Mark, and she asked him, what's going on with you? You're acting different. And although Mark had only ever spoken about Meredith in a professional context, Genera knew something was up. She felt it in her gut, and she had an intuition that something wasn't just strictly professional. So she asks, it's Meredith, isn't it? Mark denied the affair, but this did not at all dispel her suspicions.
Mark was distant, he was detached.
And Genera picked up on it.
She suspected it had something to do with another woman.
She said specifically, it's Meredith, isn't it? We had talked about Meredith before in the context of her professional decorum, and I oohed and awed about Meredith. It wasn't too far of a leap for her to get there, and I denied it.
Genera isn't buying it. In fact, she's keeping pretty close tabs on him, quizzing him about Meredith. She seems to have information she couldn't have any way of knowing, and Mark can't figure out how.
In February of 2018, a couple of months after that, Genera confessed to Mark that she had hired an agency to gain access to his phone. She had saved photos of all of his texts and recordings of all of his calls with Meredith.
At the time, Genera disclosed that she had taken my phone and had it cloned.
She had hired a company to access his phone, to read his texts, to see his photos, to see a record of his calls. Unbeknownst to Mark, his conversations with Meredith are being recorded by Genera.
I felt more joy, more excitement this fall than I ever did before.
I want to see you again today. I really want to. I kind of need to.
Where are you going to be?
Love you. Thanks. Love you too. Bye.
She would focus on Mark and Meredith and what they were doing and how she was going to catch them together.
I'm counting on celebration drinks tomorrow.
Every time she would get more proof, it would give her that sick feeling in her stomach.
So at this point, Mark knew that the secret was out, and he finally confessed the truth about his affair with Meredith. He also told Genera that he wanted to separate.
I finally just told her, I'm in love with Meredith. I can't deny it anymore.
And how did she react?
I think she was a bit taken back that I was so bluntly honest, but and to me, it was a relief to actually get it out in the open.
This was obviously devastating to her. She was heartbroken. This was her husband of over 20 years, her soulmate. How was life going to continue on, knowing that he's now leaving her for this younger woman? Mark began to realize just how badly Genera wanted to keep this relationship going. So when she requested that they go to marriage counseling, he did so reluctantly. It was difficult for him to just throw away 20 years of marriage despite his passionate love for Meredith and this new romance that was blooming. And although Genera wasn't taking anything well and was trying desperately to keep their marriage together by going to counseling, little did he know just how far Genera would go to disrupt his new romantic relationship with his new colleague Meredith. As he and Genera continued counseling, he continued to contemplate what he was going to do and the decision that he was going to make. Then one morning when he was getting dressed for an appointment with the marriage counselor, he noticed something that shifted everything he thought he knew about the state of his marriage with Genera. He put on his jacket and felt a strange lump in the seam of the lapel. At first, he believed it could be an anti-theft device that maybe the store had left in by accident. So he cut the lining open on the seam and he found a relatively sophisticated listening device. The red light was blinking on this device. It was recording him at that very moment.
Mark is getting ready to head to the marriage counselor's office and throws his coat on, and he feels something in the lining of the coat.
And I kind of straightened the lapel, and I felt, it was a strange feeling of something that was inside the jacket. And I reached inside my pocket and I felt what I thought was a anti-theft device. So I thought, why is there an anti-theft device inside the lining of my jacket? I cut open with an X-Acto blade the edge of the pocket and pulled out this device, and there was a blinking light.
It was a listening device.
It was a listening device.
And it was sewn into the lining of your jacket.
Correct.
Everything begins to make sense now that Mark realizes he's been bugged.
That's all I think about.
Meredith, what do you hate driving into work now?
You have a good night.
This is so shocking to Mark because not only has she cloned his phone, she's also bugged his actual person. She's listening in on almost everything he's doing. Even Genera's own conversations with Mark are being recorded.
I'm done talking about this any further.
Maybe if you were truthful with me from the very beginning, I wouldn't have had to dig around like this.
She told me she wanted to understand the degree to which Meredith and I were in the relationship. She was determined that there was a plan between Meredith and I, and she was trying to listen to what that plan was.
For him, this was really the beginning of the end. He now was realizing just how unhealthy the relationship with his wife had really become. The weeks following this discovery and this incident, Genera apparently became very erratic and very spiteful. She threatened to throw herself from a window, claiming the pain he had caused her had pushed her to take her own life. She also wanted to hurt Meredith too, so she went to Meredith's husband, Luke Chapman, and told him about the affair between Mark and his wife. She also showed him messages and phone records between the two secret lovers. Luke was enraged and filed for divorce before the week was over. But that still was not enough for Genera. She then went to the University of Delaware's ethics board and explained in a very detailed letter about the affair between Mark and Meredith. She wanted to destroy them, and she was out for blood. And it worked. This letter resulted in termination for the both of them. Mark was desperate to get out of his marriage by this point. So when meeting with lawyers to discuss the particulars for the separation agreements, Mark's attorney warned him, "You need to get out of this. She is going to hurt someone," after he was detailing some of the unhinged behavior that Genera was showing. At the time, Genera also had a divorce coach. Sheila Brennan was hired to help her more smoothly navigate the separation. She was angry and hurt, and she felt that Mark had traded her in for a younger woman, and she was afraid of being stranded financially after the divorce and being stuck alone in a town where she knew no one. When Genera told her coach about recording Mark and Meredith's conversations through the planted listening devices, Sheila described her stalker-like behavior as her new full-time job. She spent all of her time obsessing over Mark's relationship with Meredith to a very unhealthy degree. But the recorded conversations and the access to Mark's phone was only the tip of the iceberg. No one knew just how unhinged she actually really had become. It turns out right after Mark confessed his affair with Meredith is when Genera began to plant those bugs in his jackets. The one he had found was just one of many. She had one in each of his coats, and she would retrieve it at the end of every day, download the audio, and then transcribe the conversations into a journal. She was obsessing over it. When she was done doing that, she would re-sew the device back into his coat. Every day, she would have access to all of the interactions between Mark and Meredith, and this absolutely drove her obsession. By Genera listening to those tapes, it triggered her rage, and it gave her courage and confidence to know that she was the right person in this and that he was the bad person in this. On top of the listening devices, she opened up a secret bank account with which she purchased sophisticated GPS tracking systems and put them onto Mark and Meredith's cars. She also purchased DNA kits specifically designed to retrieve DNA specimens from a person's clothing. She purchased lockpicking kits and computer hacking software. She had thousands of images from his phone and computer and hundreds of hours of audio from her hidden recording devices. She would just sit and stew over all of this proof that she had collected of Mark's infidelity, just fueling her rage more and more. Then on March 20th, 2018, she purchased a handgun, a Taurus Tracker 357 Magnum. According to the bank statement from her secret bank account, she even visited a firing range to practice with her new weapon. As this was all escalating, later that month, she purchased a wig, a trench coat, and a pair of binoculars in order to stake out outside Meredith's home and spy on her through the windows. One of Meredith's neighbors even saw Genera in full disguise hiding in the bushes outside of Meredith's home during the third week of April. Genera was becoming more and more unhinged and more obsessed as the date for the divorce proceedings grew closer. Now, as all of this was happening, Mark knew that she was struggling, but he had no idea of the secret life that she was leading behind his back. He had suggested that she reach out to friends and family for emotional support and to see a therapist to better allow her to cope.
By the third counseling session, it was obvious to me that this was going in a certain direction.
You wanted to end your marriage.
I wanted to end the marriage. And I told her I'm going to be filing a petition for divorce when I meet my residency requirements in May.
He thought she was getting better and had finally come to terms with what was happening and to accept the inevitable. So when she requested that Mark started to spend some more time with her in the weeks leading up to the official divorce, such as going to dinner, going to the movies, going on hikes, he agreed because he was hoping to make the separation as easy as possible for her. May 6th, 2018 was the date scheduled for the couple's appearance in divorce court to make their separation permanent. In the meantime, Meredith and her husband Luke had already officially divorced, and she had moved to Radnor Township, Pennsylvania. She did that to accept a new position as vice president of Villanova University, after Genera had gotten Meredith fired from her job at the University of Delaware. Mark also had plans to move to Pennsylvania with Meredith after his divorce became official. But he still had to navigate these last final weeks with Genera delicately to cause as little damage as possible until the divorce was official.
Things are happening really quickly now. Meredith and her husband are now moving towards a divorce. Both she and Mark are looking for new homes around the beautiful mainline suburbs in Philadelphia near her new job. Genera, on the other hand, is looking ahead to what she feels is a life alone in a new city with no job and no support system.
On the evening of April 23rd, 2018, 2 weeks before the divorce was set to be finalized, Genera and Mark had plans to meet for dinner. While Mark was waiting for her in the restaurant, he received a text from Genera that said that she was running late. So he waited around a little bit longer, but then he got another text. This one said, "Go home, I'm not going to make it." Confused, he began to gather himself and gather his stuff to leave when he got another text. This one much more disturbing. It was a photo of a used condom at the top of a trash can, Meredith's trash can, outside her new home in Radnor Township. So Mark began to worry, sure that Genera had gone to actually confront Meredith and make a scene. And then he got another couple of texts that sent a chill down his spine. One that read, "You ruined my life. I hope you never find happiness." And another that said, "Goodbye, Mark." Afraid of what Genera planned to do, he began frantically texting and calling Meredith. And after he got no response, he hopped in his car and drove to Meredith's brick house on Lowry's Lane, unsure of what he would find. Would Genera cause a terrible scene, maybe even try to fight Meredith? Would Genera be out of control with tendencies to take her own life? What was going to happen? After a frantic drive, he arrived at Meredith's home, where her neighbor, Tim Mulvey, was standing outside. He told Mark that he had heard a commotion coming from inside in the kitchen, but he was unsure if the residents needed help. So Mark ran into the house, expecting to find the two women in the midst of a brawl from the commotion. What he found was much worse than he could have ever imagined. On the tile floor of her kitchen, he found his girlfriend Meredith laying in a dark pool of blood, dead from a gunshot wound to the head. A few feet away was his wife, laying face down, not moving, and shot in the head by her own hand. He ran over to her body and yelled, "Baby, baby, what have you done?" And he yelled out to the neighbor still standing outside, "Call the police." At 7:50 p.m., the police arrived on the scene. Sergeant Christopher Four was one of the very first officers on the scene, and he recalled the scene as just completely chaotic. This town was not used to such violent crimes like this. Mark was hyperventilating and was in complete shock. He also was, of course, the prime suspect. Both his girlfriend and his soon-to-be ex-wife were murdered, and he was the first person on the scene. So police put him into the patrol car and took him to the police station for interrogation. After an hour or so of interrogation, he was released when investigators at the scene discovered the murder weapon, Genera's newly purchased handgun, and it was under her body on the floor. The police now understood what happened. Genera first shot Meredith, and then she turned the gun on herself.
Two women found shot in the head in this Radnor Township home, police say, appears to be the result of a love affair with a tragic end.
This was a calculated, planned attack.
One of the victims is 33-year-old Meredith Chapman, a former candidate for state senate in Delaware and a recently hired Villanova assistant vice president. Sometime after 5 o'clock yesterday, Chapman walked into her Lowry's Lane home. Police say she was walking into a trap. Chapman's alleged lover's wife had broken into the home and was waiting inside with a gun.
There were emails and text messages indicating what she planned to do.
The wife, Genera Garrido of Delaware, killed herself after killing Chapman, and before Garrido's husband arrived at the home and discovered both of their bodies.
Police started to dig into Genera's past to understand the whys and the hows of her horrific crime that took place on April 23rd. They discovered her secret bank account and reviewed all of her purchases, discovering the GPS trackers, the handgun at the shooting practice, and all of those materials she bought for her disguise. They also found out that she had rented a Cadillac 2 weeks before the murder. Mark realized after police informed him of this rental that he had seen her car parked outside of their apartment for the last couple of weeks, but had no idea that it was rented to his wife. Investigators also discovered a 15-page letter that Genera had emailed to her friends and family the evening of the murder, detailing her motive and saying goodbye. She had been composing that letter for over 2 weeks and had dated each entry. According to this letter, she was desperate for revenge. She wanted to hurt Mark and Meredith as badly as she felt they had hurt her. Mark had ruined her life, and she wanted him to suffer for these transgressions.
Mark, why didn't Genera just kill you? You were the problem. You were the one who left her.
Well, that was her plan B. There was a letter that she wrote, and she described in great detail what she was going to do. She was afraid of me walking in first, and she says, if he does, I'm going to have to do a Bryn Phil Hartman. And Phil Hartman was a famous actor on Saturday Night Live, and he and his wife took his. So she used their names as verbs as to what she was going to do. So I was going to be the backup plan to take me out.
Take you out before taking out Meredith?
Yes. That's my understanding from the letter.
When analyzed by psychologists, Dr. Robbie Ludwig stated that she was clearly exhibiting signs of borderline personality disorder. There are 9 criteria that psychologists look for in patients, and normally an individual is diagnosed if they show signs of 5 of those 9 criteria. And in her letter, Genera apparently exhibited signs of all 9. Genera clearly could not handle Mark's infidelity and this upcoming divorce. The constant spying and listening in on their conversations stirred in Genera an intense rage, and her unhealthy behavior triggered her desire to murder her husband's mistress and take her own life after. A year after the nightmare of April 23rd, Mark moved across the country to California to escape the painful memories, and he has since written a book about the experience called Irreparable: 3 Lives, 2 Deaths, 1 Story That Has to Be Told. His writing has helped him to deal with the trauma and heal from the pain caused by his affair. He also hopes to prevent similar hardship and destruction for couples going through the same kind of marriage difficulty that he experienced with Genera. He says today that he would have done things very differently. He would have tried to cause less pain to Genera and made sure that she had the emotional and psychological support that she needed to better navigate their separation.
You don't find me appealing. You don't find me attractive. You don't want me anymore. You don't even like me. You are miserable. She lights your fire. She makes you feel young. You're excited. It's all fresh. You're getting to know each other, and you are in love with her.
Do you think you could have stopped it?
I could have stopped the relationship. I could have handled it completely differently. I broke her heart. My regret comes back to making her feel like she had no other choice.
Have you forgiven yourself?
I'm still working on that.
The newest updates on the case concern Meredith's ex-husband, Luke Chapman, who was awarded her life insurance benefits after her death despite their divorce just weeks prior to her death. Since their divorce was so recent when Meredith was killed, she never changed the beneficiary on her life insurance policies, and he was set to receive everything after her death. She had a total of 3 policies, 2 individual and 1 group policy through the University of Delaware. However, according to Pennsylvania law, where she was a resident when she died, if a couple is divorced and the insured member has not yet changed their policy before the death of the insured party, the ex-spouse is considered to have pre-deceased the insured member, making their inheritance null and void. So this means that Luke Chapman doesn't receive any of the benefits from the individual policies. But Meredith's group policy, which was issued from the University of Delaware, falls under the jurisdiction of the state of Delaware. And Delaware law states whomever is listed as the beneficiary is to receive the settlement regardless of whether they were divorced at the time or not. So in March of 2021, a court ruled that Luke had to relinquish his inheritance from Meredith's individual life insurance policies back to the state of Pennsylvania, but that he could keep the money issued from her group insurance policy issued by the University of Delaware. Luke has since tried to move on and is living as a financial advisor in Newcastle, Delaware. The lives of those affected by Mark and Meredith's affair were many. A love triangle that turned deadly, a wife and husband betrayed. Those who survived the traumatic episode have tried to move on with their lives. But for Mark, he will forever remember the 2 women he loved and hope that no one has to experience the pain and suffering that he felt in the event of their deaths. Now, when I first heard about this case, my immediate thought was, I don't feel sorry for you, guy. You made your bed. It's time to lay in it. You're the one who cheated. You have to bear the weight of the consequences. 100%. While part of me also then had a little bit of, I guess conflicting feelings, I would say, thinking at the end of the day, it's Genera's responsibility what she does with her jealousy, what she does with her rage. So I want to ask you guys in the comment section below, if you're comfortable sharing, What's the craziest thing jealousy has ever made you do? Or do you not get jealous at all? And for those of you who do, how do you overcome and deal with jealousy? Share in the comment section below for anybody watching this video who is currently struggling with jealousy and with feelings like this of their own. What is it that you do to overcome and to cope with feelings of jealousy? What is your advice that you would give to somebody who has experienced this, who is experiencing at the moment their spouse cheating on them or catching, suspicious text messages, audio, things like that nature? What advice would you give to them, or what skills have you personally used in your own experiences to where we could hopefully share a little bit of knowledge in a trusting environment with each other to where we can avoid tragedies like this happening again in the future? Let me know in the comment section below. Thanks for tuning in today, guys. I hope you enjoyed the case coverage. Please don't forget, take a quick pause, hit that thumbs up button on this video, and press the red subscribe button if you haven't subscribed to the channel already so that you can stay updated as new case videos drop. It's a free way to support the channel, and I appreciate it so much. All right, guys, thanks again, and until the next one, stay safe. Bye.